Hear ye, welcome one, welcome all to Why I Want Season 5. This is episode 13 of the show, where we talk about prospects in the upcoming NHL Entry Draft. Now, it's no secret that this show has so far been a lot of forwards. We have talked mostly about guys up front, and not too much about any defenders aside from Nemec and Seamus Casey. Don't worry, the David Jiricek video is coming, it's just not coming right away. Instead, though, today's episode is focusing on another defenseman that I really wanted to shine a spotlight here in this year's NHL draft. He's playing out of the WHL for the Moose Jaw Warriors. He is not the biggest guy in the world, but he's a player that I think exhibits one of the best mentalities out of all the players in this NHL draft. His name is Denton Mateychuk. Now, if you go over to the profile here, just getting the formalities out of the way, Denton Mateychuk is a 5'11", 187-pound left-handed defenseman who was born on July 12, 2004. He's 17 years old, and he is one of the younger players in this year's draft. If you go over to what it was that he was able to do so far in the WHL and the playoffs, he had himself 64 points in 65 games played for the Moose Jaw Warriors and 8 points in 5 games in the playoffs. His production was really good, and you'll notice that he actually did have 13 goals on the season as well. You do have some other defensemen in the WHL who are eligible for this year's draft, like Kevin Korchinski, for example, who is a lot more of a playmaker compared to Mateychuk, but when it comes to the way Mateychuk visions the game and how he forces himself to play, there's a lot to like here that I think is going to be really valuable as we go further in this commentary. Because of the production, because of how he's able to play, his consolidated ranking is 17th overall. The highest ranked guys have him around the 8th spot. That's elite prospects. They see him as a top 10 potential prospect in this draft. You do have some other guys that are more optimistic on him as well, like Future Considerations, who have him at 17, McKean's has him at 14, Sportsnet has him at 19, Dauber at 16, but if you look at the more pessimistic rankings, you have outlets like TSN and Bob McKenzie, who have him at number 29, Recruit Scouting has him at number 20, Smart Scouting has him at 22, but the range is pretty significant here. I mean, 8 to 29 is a pretty wide sample, so let's just say for the sake of argument, Denton Mateychuk is a first-round talent who could go as high as, let's say, the early teens if you're really optimistic on him, but whom other scouts might not touch until, let's say, the mid-20s. The reason I say that Denton Mateychuk's mentality and the way he thinks the game is one of the best in the draft is because when you take a look at Mateychuk and you try to watch him play, it's really difficult, at least in my experience, to find a comparable play style to match with somebody who is already in the NHL or who has made an impact in other levels of hockey. He's an extremely unique player. You'll find no one else like Denton Mateychuk because he scores a ton of freaking points, mostly due to how the Moose Jaw Warriors play really flows through him, and he's always pushing forward with the play. He's really aggressive in the offensive zone, and he loves carrying the puck. He has a real game-breaker mentality to his game, and alongside these skills, he reads the game well enough, and is one of the smarter defensemen of the draft, knowing when to use his teammates and frequently doing so on defensive rushes. He reads opponents' passes well, which leads to good transitional breakups for his team, and paired with his hockey knowledge, he uses these traits to push play forward. But it's that real offensive edge that he has, the desire to go out there and make something happen, that really pushes him above and beyond and always forces the limit as to what he's capable of on a night-to-night basis. He can shoot the puck well and he can shoot it through traffic, but he's not too flashy. He's got some skills that he'll use when he joins the rush, for example, and comes in as a finisher in tight on the rush, but he can also keep his distance and rip it from the point. He's good at spotting guys for rebounds and tips, if not ripping it in himself. He facilitates play really well when I watch his tape. He's not afraid to make really small, quick little passes that just move the play forward, and then he'll skate up a little bit further, making himself an option for another pass for a give and go. The thing with Mateychuk is that he never really forces it. He's just so smart in using his teammates and using the available space that when it comes to the way the Moose Jaw Warriors play the game, a lot of that soul of their offense comes through what Mateychuk is able to provide. Let's go over onto Dauber prospects and take a look at what they have to say on their scouting report. He's a mobile two-way defender with good puck-moving ability, not a flashy player, but a smart one who could develop into a top-4 defenseman at the NHL level. The December scouting report from Mateychuk says that he played well in an abbreviated WHL season in 2020-2021, but he has taken his game to another level for Moose Jaw this year. There is a significant gap between him and the next highest scoring draft-eligible defenseman in the WHL, but it's the way he's able to balance an attacking mindset with responsible defensive play that has drawn the most praise. Mateychuk has been a steady climber in scout circles all season long, and there is a chance he could hear his name called within the first 10 picks of the 2022 draft if he maintains his strong play in the second half. Here's an article from thehockeywriters.com with a few more quotes from other scouting outlets. In the 2022 draft class, there isn't a player I enjoy watching more on a nightly basis than Denton Mateychuk, Austin Garrett of Smart Scouting writes. He is a unicorn as a defender. There isn't an archetype that he really fits into, which makes him a polarizing player to categorize and rank. He is at his best when the puck is on his stick, driving transitional play and having the offense flow through him. Even if his puck handling skills drive down the effectiveness of his rush offense, his intelligence, passing ability, off-puck awareness, and aggressiveness will still make him an effective offensive defenseman. The Athletic, Corey Pronman writes out here that Mateychuk is an undersized but dynamic D-man. His skating pops, showing very quick feet that can easily transition pucks up ice with speed or evade pressure easily. Mateychuk attacks with the puck using his skill, skating, and vision, making him a threat off the rush and blue line to create chances. He defends well in the WHL due to his feet, but at 5'11", the concern for scouts is how well he'll be able to check in the NHL. I see a projected second, third pair tweener type for that reason, Corey Pronman writes. If you want to go back over to Smart Scouting, this is their regular article they have, published again by Austin Garrett. He writes that Mateychuk is not a player that is going to fit into a system that wants their defensemen to be passive in transition by passing the puck up to the forwards, nor a system that doesn't want their defensemen to activate from the blue line to the offensive zone. He is at his best when the puck is on his stick, driving transitional play. As we said, that's the same thing from the previous thing. If his mobility is able to reach a level that isn't far too off from where he is now, an aggressive projection from Mateychuk could be an elite offensive catalyst from the back end with the ability to mitigate defensive zone transitions, which would erase concerns about his size. Conservatively, he projects as an aggressive, high-event style defenseman who you bet will create more chances than he'll give up. I personally lean to his highest ceiling due to his consistent impact on the offensive end of the ice in my viewings, but the concerns about his size and footwork are valid. So, when it comes to the future of Denton Mateychuk, you'll see a lot of Moose Jaw fans going out there and saying, oh, this guy skates like a ballerina, he twists and twirls all over the ice like crazy. It's good in the WHL. He can do that. It's just, as he transcends into higher levels of hockey, the question is, in the NHL, you're not given as much space as you are in the WHL. Sure, the WHL is probably the most physical and most heavily checking league out of the 3 CHL leagues, but for a guy like Denton Mateychuk, who isn't really the best skater in the world, but who is good enough to maneuver around the WHL, at what point do you say, okay, the way you move, the way you skate is going to be effective at the NHL level? The way he thinks the game is great. He's super aggressive, he's always trying to facilitate offense, and he is a definite threat all over the offensive zone, on the perimeter, on the blue line, top of the slot, in tight. He's just such a lethal offensively minded defenseman. But the question is, how well is he going to be able to be a defenseman at the NHL level? For 2 more scouting report quotes, I wanted to go over onto mynhldraft.com, take a look at what Nick Richard of Dauber said on March 20th. Mateychuk blends elite skating ability with good vision and intelligent reads to drive play from the back end. He picks his spots well, but has been more engaged offensively this season, and his production reflects that. So Nick Richard is saying that he actually does have elite skating ability, which is something that some people would say others would be a little bit more conservative as to how well that's going to translate to higher levels of play. And then you have Sam Constantino. Now, I know I rip on his scouting reports all the time because they don't really give any information on the players, but this one actually does. Mature beyond his years, he has the ability to adjust his game based on team needs, and that is typically helpful in hastening the path to the NHL. So long story short, Denton Mateychuk is a defenseman whom you're probably not going to see anybody play the game like. His mind is crafted for offense when it comes to joining the rush in tight to become a finisher on the rush, hammering a puck home from the blue line, setting a guy up with a quick give and go, and becoming a nice option in front again too. He's got such a well-rounded and polished offensive mind that he was a point per game in the WHL. You don't usually see guys this early after having such a short stint in the WHL before. He only had 16 games played in 2020-2021, explode in the way that he has offensively. So for Mateychuk, the ceiling is really high here. If he pans out to what he could be at the NHL level and his defensive issues and concerns sort themselves out, he could be a top 2 defenseman who is able to crack out at, let's say, 40-50 points on a season. But if the way he's able to defend doesn't translate as well, and if his skating doesn't translate as well as it does from the WHL to the NHL, then we're looking at maybe a tweener guy, second, third pair, who contributes on a power play here and there, because the mentality he has is so strong that I think it's good enough to carry him forward to the NHL level. It's just a matter of where you want to take this guy in the 2022 draft. So, talk to me in the comments all your thoughts about Denton Mateychuk and where you feel he could go in this year's draft. Do you want this player? Do you not? Let me know in the comments why that is or isn't. I hope you enjoyed this Trolls 99, and bye.